I will show you 5 of my favorite Sudoku hacks that will help you solve hard puzzles like this 50% faster. And with that, it's solving time. So hack number 1, you want to start where you can make multiple solves. So don't start over here, but notice how this 4 comes down and this 4 cuts across block 6. And so the 4s are limited into these 2 spots. And since they're in the same column, a 4 can't be anywhere else in that column. You already have a 4 in column 8. To go with this 4, you can solve for a 4 in block 9. And then with this 4, solve for 4 in block 8. With these 4s and this 4, solve for 4 here in block 2. Greetings, friend. I want to thank Bremster for allowing me to solve this puzzle from one of his future Sudoku puzzle packs. That's right, he gave me exclusive permission to share this with you before its release date. It's probably the trickiest of the classics he has made, which makes it a perfect puzzle to show you 5 of my favorite hacks that will help you avoid backtracking and solve this puzzle up to 50% faster. So hack 1, start where you can get multiple solves. Hack number 2 is you want to follow a memorable system. So something that will help you keep track of what candidates, blocks, rows, and columns that you've looked at. For me, I just look for digit restrictions from 1 to 9. So let's start with the 1s here. With these 2 1s, there's only 2 places for 1s in block 1. And so you want to mark these restrictions in case you solve one of these cells for another digit. You can solve this for a 1. And it helps you find things like these pointing pairs. Nothing else you can do marking wise with the 1s. So go to the 2s. These 2s in rows 4 and 5. 2 places for a 2 in block 5. Nothing else there. Look at the 3s. 2 places for a 3 in block 2. Okay. And then go to the 4s. And see, by doing this, you know I've already covered digits 1 through 3. And moving on to the 4s. 4s in block 1. And then with these 4s, 4s in block 1 and in block 4 there. And now before I reveal hack number 3, that's going to be probably the easiest for you to implement. You're going to see this time and again, save you a few minutes on each solve. I have the question of the day. What is one of your favorite Sudoku hacks? Please, please, please share in the comments what you do to solve puzzles faster. Help others get faster at solving Sudoku as well. I would love to hear from you. I answer every comment. So hack number 3. Hack number 3 is you want to check for naked singles. And so by doing the cross-hatching, scanning that I just showed you, that's mainly hidden singles, right? Where it's restricted in a block. You look for naked singles when there's only one possibility. This is going to save you 1 to 2 minutes per naked single that you find. So let's check out these 5s. With this 5 in the row and this 5 in the column, you have a pointing pair of 5s in block 2. And so the 5s will look like you could be in these 2 spaces here in block 3. But look at how many other digits are in the same row, column, and block as this cell right here. So you might notice cannot be a 1 or a 2, cannot be a 3 or a 4, a 6, 7, 8, or 9. So if you see all this, take a little peek and go, yep, this is a naked single 5. And so if you saw that for a 5, now you're going to see that you've created some restriction in this block. So you look right here, you might notice that you got the 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, another 7, 8, and 9. This now can only be a naked single 2. And if you stay up in here, now you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're looking for a 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, with all these 7s, now this has to be your 7. With these 9s, this has to be your 9. With this 8, that's an 8, and that's a 6. And now you've solved all of these cells just by finding naked single. But we're not done. There's more naked singles to find here. And hopefully I'm not embarrassing you by talking about that term. If there's a better term, I would use it. Look right here in block 6. You just made a heavy house. 5 digits filled out here in column 8. So it creates a bunch of restriction. You got the 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the column, You got a 1, 2, and 3 here in the row. So what's left? Only can be a 5. That's another naked single 5. So you find that it's going to create much more restriction for you, because now you have remaining a 1, 2, 3 naked triple, and restricts the 2s to these 2 cells right here. So you want to find those naked singles and cut the solve time down. What else we can do is now continue on with the 5s. With this 5, there's only one place for a 5 here in block 9, and then you got 5s here in block 7. So you go back to that system to remember to get the rest and look for the rest of the possibilities for that digit before moving on. Move on to the 6s. These 2 6s, 2 places for a 6 right here in block 1, and then in block 9, these are only 2 places for a 6. Okay, how about the 7s? Can we get some solves here? Sure. These 2 7s, only place for a 7 in block 8 right there. And then with these 7s, you have restricted 7s in block 1. And then with this 7 cutting up, this 7 cutting across, you have a pointing pair of 7s here in block 4 to go with this 7. It restricts the 7s there in block 5. And because you have a 7 right there, you can actually solve for the 7 there in block 5. Nice. And that's all we can do with the 7s. Move on to the 8s. With these 2 8s, what you might notice is the 8s are in the same 2 places as the 5s, but you also have this additional 3. So what do we do about that? Well, that 3 is extra because the 5 and 8 can only be in these 2 spots. That makes them a hidden pair. And I cover hidden pairs in my free Sudoku solving guide. But since you have this 3 extra, the 5 and 8 can only be in these 2 cells. A 3 can't be there. You can remove that 3 and now solve this cell for a 3. And I'll get out of color mode, solve that for a 3 now. And you want to just kind of look, for a little bit extra here. What does that mean? Because you have a 5, 8 here, and you already have a 1, 6, 7, 9, you notice these 3 cells could only be a 2, 3, 4. 3 and 4 right there. Guess what? This is another naked single. That has to be a 2, and now you can mark these for a 3, 4. And by doing the marking here, you've kind of like telling yourself, all right, I already looked for restrictions. Bi-value cells, 2 places for a digit in a block. These are the types of marks you want to make because these are the restrictions you're looking for that's going to create easier solves later on. And so after finding that, you can go across row 2 now, and you might notice that a 1 can be there, but it can't be there. So you can solve that for 1 right away, displacing that 7. And then it puts 2 places for a 1 down here in block 7. What else do you see? You'll notice now the 1 and 2 are restricted to these 2 cells here. And then this would only be 9 and 6. So mark those bi-value cells. This is a tricky puzzle, so bi-value cells will probably come into play here a little bit later. After making those marks, let's look what else we can do with the 8s. What you might see is with this 8 cutting across, 3 places for an 8 here I'm not going to mark, but where does it restrict the 8s in row 7? Because of this 8, 8s can't be there or there, and you know they can't be here because of this 8, and so you have what's called a claiming pair of 8s. So you want to mark that, which means the 8s have to be somewhere in row 7. They're restricted to this block 7. So it means an 8 can't be in these cells, or these cells. They already can't be here because of this 8. So you want to make that mark. Okay, after the claiming pair, you move on to the 9s. And again, if you look here in block 7, what you might notice is you have a pretty heavy house right here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You just need a 1, 2, or a 9. You got the 1, 2 there. Guess what? This is a naked single 9. So instead of just marking 9s, now you can mark that for a naked single. And then with this 1, 2 goes right there. That has to be your 1. So you save yourself a lot of time by finding this. And then you can mark 9s because of this 9 here in block 8. And so you want to go back through now, bonus tip, look for some pairs this time, kind of amp your solving up. We still got 2 more hacks to go through. And so we found these ones down here, but you may not have seen is that with this 3 cutting down, the 3s are now a pointing pair in block 6. To go with this 3 and these 3s, you can solve for a 3 now in block 5. Nice. Which now restricts the 5s because of this 5 and this 5 to these 2 cells. But you might also notice with this 1 and this 1, restricts the 1s of those 2 cells. So you found another hidden pair. And there's a 2 additionally there, so the 2 can't go there because the 1 and 5 can only be in those spots. So you're going to displace that 2 and solve this cell now for a 2. And this brings me up to hack number 4. So hack number 4 is you want to compare digits and houses. So not just look at individual like you did the first time around in your system, but now compare digits and houses. So like how we found this hidden pair, you want to look here in column 3. What you might notice is it's a heavy house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 9. You get 6, 7, and 8. Well, you got 7 right there. That can only be a 6 or an 8. This can only be a 6 or an 8. And so now you can solve that for a 7, right? And once you solve that for a 7, you could have moved that over as well. Okay, after solving that 7, now you want to look and go, okay, I got a 6, 8 here. I have 4 digits already placed. I have a lot of restriction going on already in column 5. Is there a relationship here? So it can be right here, right? You got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. You have 6, 8, or 9. Well, the 9's right there. Guess what? That's another 6, 8 naked pair. And if you can find these types of naked pairs, you're going to save yourself several minutes. Because without finding this, you're going to end up over marking row 4. Because now you got a 6, 8 here, 2, 3, 7, 9 already given. This now ends up being a 1, 4, 5 naked triple. Because the 1, that's a 4, 5, that's a 1, 5. And this would be a 1 or a 4. And so that's going to help you out by reducing the clutter, reducing the solves, and the marking that you need to make. But then you want to look down here. You might notice you have 6 digits filled out in block 8. It restricts this to just a 2, 8, 9, right? But it's all in the same row. So this is called a lock triple. Lock triple of 2, 8, 9. Since the 2, 8, 9 are a naked triple for block 8, they are also a naked triple for row 9, right? Because they're all in the same row, which means a 2, 8, 9 cannot be anywhere else in this row. And so now you can restrict these other cells to just a 1, 2. You got the 4 and a 7, so you just need a 1, 3, 5, and a 6. So this is going to be 3, 5, 6, and looks like this would be 1, 3, 5, or 6. And so you use that nice lock triple to reduce the 2 from right there. So what happens when you reduce that 2? You displace it, you can solve this cell now for a 2. And then this will give you a nice 1, 6 to finish up block 9. And so you're seeing how much restriction we're creating here. We're getting closer to that. We're going to need that 5th hack. Okay, so because of the marks you made here, now the 3s are a pointing pair in block 9, right? They can only go right there, which means you can remove the 3s from these 2 cells, and it restricts 3s to these cells right here. And then after doing the 3s, you might notice that here in block 5, since you have the 1, 5 there, 6, 8 there, you actually have a 6, 8, 9 here. And you'll see with this 9, 9s are a pointing pair, restricts the 9s right there. And with the 6 in the column, that's just going to be an 8 or 9, and it restricts your 6s to right there. So you made those marks, but that's about it. The first 4 hacks are only going to get you this far. Brimster said it's a tricky puzzle. So where do you go from here? Well, this is where you need hack 5. And this is what the great solvers do so well and why they don't have to mark the entire grid. We've marked several digits in this grid, several cells, but you want to be able to focus and find this fifth hack. And the fifth hack is identifying impactful cells. So you're looking, an impactful cell in this case would be a buy value cell in a restricted block. So you notice how many restricted marks we have here in block 7. Well, that's a buy value cell right there. So you want to kind of focus on this. And this is what, again, the great solvers, I see Mark and Simon do this all the time. If we can remove a 5 or a 6 and solve this cell, it's going to create a bunch more solving. So what can we do about that? Well, first, look across here. You have a nice heavy house. You got 5 digits filled out. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. So you have 4, 6, 8, 9. Well, because the 9 can't be here and the 8 can't be here, that's a 4, 6. And then because you got this 9 there, 4, 6, 8. No big deal. But notice with this 5, 6, it sees this cell right here, right? And you just put a 4, 6 there. Another buy value cell, you create some more restriction, or noticed it at least. Notice how this 4, 5, 4, 6, 5, 6 are all 3 paired possibilities of the digits 4, 5, and 6. If that's a 4, that's going to be a 6. If it's a 5, our target cell's got to be a 6, right? So no matter what value this is, one of these has to be a 6. When you see this arrangement, you have found a Sudoku XY wing. And what it means is you can eliminate a 6 from any cell that sees both these blue cells. So if they share row, column, block with both, you can eliminate. So this cell right here cannot be a 6 anymore, right? Because it shares the column and the block. And this cell right here can't be a 6 anymore. So what would that be? Can't be a 6, it'd be a 1 or a 3. Because you already have the 8 right there. And then this cell right here, which you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 5, 6, 8, or 9, that can't be a 6. So it leaves you with a 5, 8, 9. Okay, not a big deal, but you got to look at impact, right? So impact is impact on row, column, and block. Because you did that, what does it do for your solving, right? You got to ask that question. And what it did is it created this nice 1, 5 down here, right? Where else do you have a 1, 5? The cell right here. Okay, no big deal. What can be in this cell, right? It could be 5, 6, 8, or 9. Can't be an 8 because of this 8 right here. Huh. If you could remove the 5 from this cell, it gives you a pointing pair of 5s, and then we'd be able to solve our targeted cell down here. Is there a way we can do that? Well, you notice this 1, 5 looks at this cell right here. Also, this 1, 5 does. So these are the same buy value cells. Is there a way to connect them with a conjugate pair? You know, a conjugate pair is where there's 2 possibilities, and we'll use these 1s right here. So either that's a 1. If it's not a 1, this other cell has to be a 1. So that's a conjugate pair. One of those has to be a 1. Whenever they connect, same buy value cells, using one of those candidates, in this case the 1, you found a Sudoku W wing. Brimster put a W wing in here. Really nice, right? And so how does this work? Either this cell right here is a 5. If it's a 5, anything that sees it can't be a 5. If it's not a 5, it has to be a 1. Means this is not a 1, so it can be a 3. Forces the 1 right there and forces the cell to be a 5. So no matter what value this is, one of these orange cells has to be a 5. So with the W wing, you can remove a 5 from any cell that sees both. This 5 and this 5 share a column and a row with the 5 right here. So you remove that. And what does that do? What is the impact of that now? And this is great because you have to set it up with that XY wing and then go right to this W wing that was created after you do the XY wing. I love what Brimster did here because now it creates a pointing pair of 5s in block 4, which means a 5 can't be anywhere else along the column. And so you can remove a 5 from here and solve this cell now for a 6. Awesome. And now you solve a cell in a block with a lot of buy value cells and a lot of restrictions. You're going to get some more solves here because that's a 6, that's an 8. Look at the impact, right? And then that can't be an 8. So after solving the 6, let's continue here in block 7. You got a 1, 3, 5 now, because the pointing pair of 5 in this 1, that has to be the 3, that's the 1, that's going to be the 5. Okay, what else can we do with this 1? That's going to be a 6. That's going to be a 1, and this has to be your 3 in the corner. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, let's follow this up. That's got to be a 6. That's got to be a 3. You want to follow and gobble up as many of these marks as possible now. All right, this could be a 1 or an 8. We have all the markings. Can we now start solving? Sure. With this 6, that's got to be a 9 now, which means this is a 6. That's going to be a 9. Okay, what else can we do with this 3? That's 4. That's 3. I'm just looking for marks I've already made so that you can unclutter them. With this 6, now that's going to be a 4, which means that's a 5. 4, 5, and a 9. That has to be your 8, and that's going to be your 6 right there, which means this is the 8. That's your 9, and that's going to be a 6. See how that works? With this 5 already in the row, there's your 1, there's your 4, and you keep going. Use those other hacks to keep solving. If you get stuck again, go back to one of the hacks I just showed you. If you don't, you keep on moving on there. 8 and 5 there. This was a lovely puzzle, Brimster. Thank you so much. 9 right there. With the 2 here, that means this has to be your 8, and our last digit is a 2. Now check out this puzzle I did on Brimster's channel. Thank you so much for watching.